One of the things I struggle with every week is identifying which comics are in the horror genre. Some are obvious. If you've got a gruesome image on the cover or a name like Night of the Something or Other or Dead in the title, it's most likely a horror comic. But sometimes it's harder to distinguish. Maybe one of these days comic book companies will smarten up and distinguish what type of genre the comic is in order to attract those who love that genre. Until then, I guess I'll just use my own judgment. Okay, enough griping from me. Let's just get to this week's new horror comic picks. Welcome back to ML Miller Frights. I'm ML Miller. Before we begin, please do me a favor and punch that like button down below. Share this video with all of your social media addicted pals. Click subscribe to this channel and ring that bell for notifications. Here's what's new in horror comics this week, September 8th, 2021. Betty and Veronica, Friends Forever, Halloween Spooktacular #1 is from Archie Comics. The story is by Francis Bonnet, with art by Dan Parent. This issue contains some reprints of old Archie Halloween comics, but also has a new story about Betty and Veronica happening upon a real witch's hat while shopping, which unleashes unlimited power. Maybe they got that cursed hat from the guys from What They Do in the Shadows. This isn't more sophisticated horror like Afterlife with Archie. This one's for all ages, but if you're looking for gateway horror for those little ones, this one's it. Broken Souls Ballad #3 is from Scout Comics. The story is by Massimo Rosi, with art by Ludovica Ceregatti. Everything I read about this series makes me think it's a very dark and body horror style version of the X-Men. I'm looking forward to catching up on this series, as it really does seem to go deep and dark with the way the cast's powers manifests from their own insecurities about their own bodies. It's a strong subject, and I want to see if the story matches the power of the premise. Elvira Meets Vincent Price #2 is from Dynamite Entertainment. The story is by David Avallone, with art by Juan Samu. I just read the first issue of this series and found it to be a pleasant surprise. It's got plenty of Elvira corniness and serves as a nice homage to the work of Vincent Price. If you're a fan of either, or both, horror icons, and why aren't you, this is going to be a fun read for you. DEADBOX #1 is from Vault Comics. The story is by Mark Russell, with art by Tiesma. Do people use Redbox anymore? I'm not sure the story is present-day relevant, but it does make for an interesting connective tissue for what looks to be an anthology horror series, as a haunted DVD machine hands out discs specifically and horrifically designed for the residents of a small U.S. town. Sounds like fun depending on the horror of the day in each issue. Army of Darkness 1979 #1 is from Dynamite Entertainment. The story is by Rodney Barnes, with the art by Tom Garcia. That Ashley Williams, he just can't stay in the present day. He's been to medieval times, not the restaurant, the actual era in history, battling those pesky deadites, and now it seems he's headed to the most dangerous period of history of all. 1979, Bronx, New York, as a street gang gets a hold of the Necronomicon and starts some disco-era mayhem and horror. Should be a lot of fun. The Last Book You'll Ever Read, #2, is from Vault Comics. The story is by Cullen Bunn, and the art is by Leila. A week of comics doesn't go by without a new Cullen Bunn book, that's for sure. This one focuses on a dark detective story about a writer whose new book seems to be causing death and destruction to anyone who reads it. Hiring a detective to go with her and protect her on a book tour proves to be more than this detective can handle. Sounds very meta and very interesting. The Conjuring, The Lover, #4 is from DC Comics. The story is by Rex Ogle, Ray Fawkes, David Leslie Johnson-McGoldrick, with art by Garry Brown. I'm still not a big fan of this book, but I appreciate that it exists. The backups have been more compelling than the main story. This issue contains a backup by Ray Fawkes, who delivered solid Vertigo work back in the day, so it appears this one will consistently entertain on the back end. MAZEBOOK #1 is from Dark Horse Comics. The story and art is by Jeff Lemire. I like the premise of this one. It's about a detective who shares a bond with his daughter over their love of puzzles and receives a call from her claiming she's lost in a labyrinth. Only problem is she's supposed to be dead. It reminds me of some kind of Hellraiser sequel of some sort, but still, it's a cool setup for a mystery. The Me You Love in the Dark, #2, is from Image Comics. The story is by Scotty Young, with art by Jorge Corona. Looking for inspiration, an artist holes up in an old house and begins hearing voices from the other side. If you're looking for solid comic booking, you can always rely on Scotty Young, paired with the hot up-and-comer Jorge Corona, and you've got some great reading. I have the first issue, and I can't wait to read it, and then this one, of course, because I like to read my comics in sequence. I'm kooky like that. Finally, we have Nice House on the Lake, #4 from DC Comics. The story is by James Tynion IV, with art by Alvaro Martinez Bueno. The end of the world continues, and this group, gathered by a mysterious being who claims to be an alien, are still getting used to being the sole survivors of the apocalypse. While it hasn't quite happened yet, I have a horrible feeling things are going to get really ugly really fast. I can't wait to see this group start tearing each other apart, all written by the current king of comics, James Tynion IV. That's it for this week. Do you think labeling comics by genre might help attract new readers? Answer that and tell me what looks good, bad, and meh in this week's horror picks down in the comments. That'll be it for today. Please chime in down below in the comments and let me know how on the nose or mind-numbingly wrong I am, or you can counter with your own review. So guys, you know how YouTube works. I'd love to be able to dedicate more time to this channel. I'm not monetized yet, so if you want to help me out, remember to hit all the pertinent bells and whistles down below. Want some spooky comics to read? I have 2 new horror comic book trade paperbacks you should look out for. Both Grave Trancers and Pirouette, collecting never-before-published issues, can be found in only the finest of comic book shops. If you're looking for written reviews, you can find them on my website, mlmillerwrites.com. If you really want to show your support, I also have a Patreon page at mlmiller. Look for the link to my Patreon page down below. Thank you so much for your time, and take care.
You're doomed to live the life you're meant to be, stuck inside your reality. You're doomed. Oh, you're doomed. You're doomed. You're doomed. Live the life that you are meant to be. Live inside that reality.